right, we are back. While I'm thinking about this, if you guys do get a little bit confused with this concept, this is actually a really good website that I'm on right now. This is called ophysics.com. And if you just click on waves, and oops, I ended up just going off of this. You get this one here called wave pulse interference and superposition. I'm going to focus on the superposition 2 one. There's actually a third one on here that's very, very similar as well, but I wanted to walk us through this one here real quick, and then we'll go from there. So what you're going to be asked to do is be able to show the superposition of a couple of different waveforms as they're interacting. So I'm going to go ahead and change these. If you do play around with this, all you have to do is just click on the dots, and that'll change the wave pulses for you. So we'll walk through a couple of them real quick, just to kind of give you an idea of what's going to happen. All right, so what we have here is this square wave pulse that is moving to the right, and then we have another square wave pulse that is moving to the left. Okay, this down here is nice because it does show the sum. We can get rid of it if we want to estimate what it is ahead of time, but I'm going to go ahead and move them manually. The animation is kind of annoying. So as I begin to move these two wave pulses closer together, what happens is when they overlap, so at this point you can see that the sum of the two waves is just both of them put together. But as we take this one step further, we have only overlapped the first segment of each one of these waves, okay? Since these two wave pulses, the original wave pulses, were in phase with one another, this is constructive interference that forms, so we end up with a wave that is double the amplitude of the original wave. You can probably guess by now that as I continue to move these waves closer together, I then, once I get them perfectly superimposed over each other, we end up with a rectangular wave pulse that is superimposed that has twice the amplitude of each one of the individual wave pulses. As we begin moving forward then, these wave pulses continue to propagate through. So if I animate this, you can see that the waveform forms and then superimposes, and it keeps bouncing back through each other and forms that wave as it superimposes on each other. Okay? All right. So I'm going to reset this thing. Oh, I forgot to move it back here. All right, let's change this waveform up. Let's, instead of waves that are in phase, let's choose the waves that are out of phase with one another. So as we begin to move these now, instead of the two waveforms superimposing constructively, now we have a waveform that begins to superimpose destructively. So from this point to this point, this waveform here superimposes with this, which these two cancel each other out. So notice that the addition of these two waves end up with a waveform that is zero. If I completely superimpose these two waveforms now, we end up with a waveform that is showing that the two actual amplitudes cancel each other out, but the wave is still there, the energy is still there. It's going to continue to propagate on from there. It just has a moment of destructive interference. Okay? The reason we know the waveform, I'll pause it right there, even though this is showing no wave, if we continue to animate this and allow the waveforms to pass through each other, it returns back to their original amplitudes. So we know the energy is still there based on that. It's just not showing up because of destructive interference. Okay, so let's back this up. We can get some of these that are a little bit more complex. Yeah, if we have to draw something like this, superimposing with this. As we begin to move these forms through, it forms a wave that is very, very challenging to draw. So you almost have to go step by step through it, but it should make sense. Once again, these are 180-degree out of phase waves. So when they are completely superimposed at the midpoint, there will only be constructive interference at that point. Okay, so once again, if I were you, I would get on here and just start playing around with some of these waveforms. You can click on the wave pulse superposition practice. You can click on this one, and you can actually adjust some of the waveforms and be able to practice a little bit on them. You can also actually adjust these yourself manually, so you can make these waves into little different forms, so that then you can kind of estimate and think about what they're going to look like when they're completely superimposed. Okay, all right, I'm going to shut down this video for now.